Have you ever wondered about the true meaning behind the book of Revelation? Is it really about the end of the world, or is there something deeper to discover? In today's story, we uncover the hidden truths of Revelation and explore how its timeless message speaks to us in the modern world. Follow Thomas, a young scholar, on his transformative journey as he discovers the true purpose behind the prophecies and metaphors of Revelation. Prepare to have your understanding of this ancient text forever changed as we explore its deeper meaning, the spiritual awakening it calls for, and how it can guide us today. In the small town of Elmsford, nestled in the heart of the countryside, there was a church that had stood for over 2 centuries. Its tall spires reached up toward the sky, as if eager to touch the heavens. Inside, the stone walls were thick, the air was heavy with the scent of aged wood and incense, and the light of a single candle flickered in the corner, casting dancing shadows across the room. It was here that we meet Thomas, a young man whose life had been filled with questions that no one seemed to have answers for. A believer, yes, but one who was skeptical of much that was taught in the pulpit. Thomas was fascinated by the Bible, particularly the book of Revelation. He had read it many times, but the more he read, the more the cryptic verses seemed to defy understanding. His curiosity, however, had led him down an unexpected path, a journey that would change his life and the way he saw the world. He had spent years reading about the prophecy, searching for meaning and connections. But it wasn't until one fateful evening that the hidden truths of Revelation began to unfold before him in ways he could never have imagined. It all started on a quiet evening when Thomas sat in the church library, leafing through an ancient, leather-bound book that had been passed down through generations. The book, titled The Secret Teachings of the Apocalypse, was said to contain deeper insights into the book of Revelation, insights that had been hidden for centuries, waiting to be uncovered by those daring enough to seek them out. The pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded, and yet the words seemed to shimmer under the candlelight. As he turned the pages, Thomas felt an overwhelming sense of unease mixed with excitement. This was no ordinary book. It spoke of symbols, angels, beasts, and a world beyond the one he knew. Each word seemed to pulse with energy, as if the book itself was alive, trying to communicate something profound to him. The first section of the book explained the 7 seals that were mentioned in Revelation, the seals that, when opened, would bring about the end of days. Thomas had read about the seals before, but this book suggested that the seals were not simply prophetic events in the future. They were metaphors for the human condition. The first seal, it said, represented greed, the insatiable desire for power and wealth. The second seal represented war, the endless cycle of conflict that plagued humanity. The third seal, famine, symbolized the imbalance of resources, the deep inequality that existed in the world. The fourth seal was death, a constant reminder of human mortality. But it was the fifth seal that shook Thomas to his core. The fifth seal, according to the book, was the silence of God, the moments when humanity cried out in suffering, but no answer came. It spoke of the righteous who had died, the martyrs who had given everything for their beliefs, yet their cries went unheard. This, the book explained, was not a reflection of God's abandonment, but rather the way in which humanity often misunderstood his silence. Silence, it suggested, was sometimes the deepest form of communication, a sign of patience, a call for introspection. As Thomas read on, he found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about the world and his faith. These revelations seemed to suggest that the book of Revelation was not simply about the end of the world but about understanding the eternal struggle within the human soul, the battle between light and darkness, between virtue and vice. It was a guide, not just for the end times, but for everyday living. The deeper Thomas delved into the book, the more he realized that the hidden truths of Revelation were not about predicting the future, but about awakening to the spiritual truth that existed within each of us. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, for example, were not simply symbols of destruction and chaos, metaphors for the inner turmoil that every human faces: conquest, war, famine, and death, the forces within us that seek to pull us away from the divine path. But there was more. As Thomas continued to read, he discovered that Revelation also spoke of redemption, not in a distant future, but in the here and now. The new heaven and new earth that were promised were not merely physical realities but spiritual transformations that were happening within humanity at this very moment. The ultimate victory of good over evil was not something that would happen at the end of time, but something that each individual could experience in their own heart. That night, as the candle burned low and the pages of the book seemed to glow with an inner light, Thomas felt a presence. He looked up to find the figure of an elderly man standing in the doorway of the library. The man's eyes were kind, yet there was an ancient wisdom in them that made Thomas feel as though he had stepped into a story much larger than his own. "I see you found the book," the old man said, his voice soft and reverberating with years of experience. "Many have sought its knowledge, but few have truly understood it." Thomas, unsure of how to respond, simply nodded. The man smiled and walked over to the desk where Thomas sat. He placed a weathered hand on the open book. "Revelation, young one, is not about predicting a cataclysmic event," the man continued. "It is about understanding the deeper workings of the universe, the interplay between light and darkness, creation and destruction. The book reveals that the greatest apocalypse is not something that happens in the world around us, but something that happens within us." The old man's words resonated deeply with Thomas. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and for the first time, he truly understood the meaning of the book of Revelation. It was not a prediction of the future, it was a call to awakening. A call to recognize the divine presence in our lives, to confront our own inner darkness, and to strive for the light. The man, sensing Thomas's realization, nodded slowly. "The revelations in this book are not to be feared, they are to be embraced. The true meaning of Revelation is that we are not just passive witnesses to the world's fate, but active participants in shaping our destiny. We can choose to live in the light, to choose peace over conflict, generosity over greed, and love over hatred." As the old man spoke, Thomas felt as though the entire room had shifted. The walls of the library seemed to fade away, and he was no longer in a small-town church, but standing in the vast expanse of the universe. He could see the cosmic dance of creation unfolding before him, the balance of forces, the interplay of life and death, light and darkness, chaos and order. It was all part of a larger, divine plan that had been unfolding for eons. For the first time in his life, Thomas felt at peace. He realized that the end of times was not a literal event, but a metaphor for the transformation that each individual must undergo in their own lifetime. The true apocalypse was the moment of self-awareness, the moment when one recognizes the divine spark within and chooses to live in alignment with that higher truth. As the old man disappeared into the shadows, leaving Thomas alone in the library, the young scholar closed the book. He felt a deep sense of clarity and purpose. The hidden truths of Revelation were not secrets to be uncovered in some distant future. They were here, now, guiding him on his journey. Thomas understood, at last, that the path to enlightenment was not a path to escape from the world, but a path to embrace it fully, its joys, its sorrows, and its mysteries. The book of Revelation was not just about the end, it was about beginning again, about awakening to the divine presence in each moment. With this newfound understanding, Thomas knew what he had to do. He would share these revelations with the world, not as a warning of doom, but as a message of hope and transformation. The book of Revelation is not just a prophecy of the future, it is a call to awakening, a guide to living a life aligned with the divine. Through its hidden truths, we come to understand the battle within ourselves and the power of redemption. It's not about waiting for the end, it's about beginning again, choosing light over darkness, and realizing that the true apocalypse is the spiritual transformation that happens within us all.